Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are so thrilled to have in the studio, making a return appearance, is Ballard Smith, and we're president of the Padres. How you doing, Ballard?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't learn enough to come back in and want to listen to me blab on and all that, but you brought a colleague of yours with you, did you not?
I did. Dick Freeman.
Dick Freeman, president of the Padres and involved with the Pirates and everything Major League Baseball as well. How you doing, Dick?
I'm doing great. Nice to be here.
Well, thanks for coming in. And, of course, if we didn't give Andy Strasburg a shout-out, we'd all be hearing from that. You know, Ballard, we talked the last time you were on about certainly the role you played, understatement of the world, and bringing the first World Series to the Padres in 1984 and everything else that was involved in that. Dick, when did you start working with the Padres? And you had 2 tours of duty, did you not?
I did. I started on June 1st, 1981, and for those of us who are old enough, you'll remember that the players went on strike on June 6th, 1981. And so I was there 5 days before they went on strike. That was my introduction to baseball. And then I spent the next 28 years either with the Padres or the Pirates.
Exactly. So you were with the Pirates for 6 years, is that right?
6 years in Pittsburgh,
right.
Yeah.
And who was the owner of Pirates at that time?
McClatchy's. It was a large group of people, but Kevin McClatchy was the lead owner at that time, yeah. And
right.
The biggest thing during my tenure there was we built PNC Park, and which... was a real wonderful experience for me, and I think turned out really, really first class too. So, also gave me a reason to come back to San Diego.
Well, I know I heard that story as well. And the PNC Park is a gorgeous park. One of the top in baseball in that aspect of it. Yeah, Ballard, when did you start working with Dick? Was it 81?
So I hired Dick in 81,
right?
And he became a very integral part of the team because in 1979, I'd been told by ownership that we had to live within the revenue that we generated.
Right.
And the only person that knew that other than me was Dick. And he did a tremendous job having us get through that time period when we were trying to sign some free agents so we could end up having a competitive team.
Right, exactly. So I'll let you brag about your partner over there. What skill sets did Dick bring to the table that was just wonderful that helped you accomplish what you wanted to do?
Well, number one, he made it possible for us to pay the bills.
Okay, that's important, right? Okay.
But the big thing in my mind that Dick did was when we signed Goose Gossage as a free agent in 83, it was a very competitive bidding situation, and Dick came up with the idea of buying an annuity. And back then, interest rates were pretty high, and that allowed us to go to Goose Gossage's agent and convince him. We actually convinced him the value of that annuity. Even I think what did we pay for that annuity, Dick? Do you remember?
Boy,
it was like 800,000 or
probably something like that. It was interest rates were probably about 12 or 13% at that time, and so it was very cheap. Let's say that.
But we were able then to go to his agent and say, well, this is a $2 million addition to the contract or whatever the figure was, and it really helped us be able to sign him in a time when we didn't have a lot of extra resources.
Right, and of course, the rest is history on this. So I'm starting to bounce around on a bunch of topics here. So Andy wanted to make sure that I asked you, Dick, about the national TV deal that you were involved in.
Well, I think what he's talking about, because Andy and I chat quite a bit.
Right, you do.
One of the biggest issues the day I started in 81, and it still is a big issue today, is the disparity in revenues of the different teams in Major League Baseball. And Ballard was involved with it before I got there, and it actually was extremely contentious, and probably still is. But it also made for very, very interesting dealing with the other small market teams, pitting ourselves as a group against the big markets. It wasn't a very pleasant situation, but at the same time, it was very interesting, and so I really enjoyed it. I think we made a major step in the right direction in the 90s. Bud Selig was the commissioner at that time,
Right.
and but I know Ballard was involved with it before I even got there. He was on a revenue sharing committee probably in 1979 when he first started, and they probably still got one today, and they still haven't worked it out. The NFL, I've tried to keep from going on and on about this, but the NFL has always been the thing that we all aspired to
100%.
as small market teams. That they did it right and still do it right.
Right. And is it just because you can't get all the owners on the same page on this? I mean, we all know it's a revenue split with the NFL. So I think 80 to 85% of their revenue is the TV contract, right?
Well, and then they share, at least they did. I assume they still do today. It's like a 60-40 split even on local ticket sales and
Right.
revenues, local revenues of all kinds,
Right.
plus the national deals split. We did split the World Series TV money and as I recall, the league championship TV money. But you can imagine the difference in our TV contract locally in San Diego versus the Yankees contract in
Right.
New York. I think at that time we might have had 1 million television homes in our area, and they had 6.5 or 7 million.
Right.
So, it was just not a fair fight.
Right. Exactly. We're chatting with former Padre presidents Dick Freeman and Ballard Smith. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades, just doing great things in San Diego County, food insecurity, literacy, art, and everything in between on this. Ballard, do you go to many of the Padre games still?
I just was counting up. I've been to 8 games this year.
Oh my goodness!
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So the playoffs last year, in my mind, was the first time in the history of the Padres when we had a better team than your Dodgers.
You were absolutely a better team than my Dodgers. I had you guys winning in 4 games. I had you winning in 4 games in 2022 when I thought we were better than you, but I just felt you were going to be, and you did. Something happened in Game 4 called a shutout, and then it happened. What happened? Dodgers just caught Dave Roberts learned how to use his bullpen. Is that the big change?
Well, I mean, first of all, you get to a short series. Anything can happen
100%.
because all the teams are good teams.
That's right.
And I don't really know the answer. One of the things that we tried to do in 1984 was put together a mix of veterans and young players, veterans who had been to the World Series, been there, done that, and were leaders in the clubhouse. And my perception is, and I don't know if this is right or not, I don't think that they had the same quality of leadership in the clubhouse that the Dodgers did.
Yeah. Well, there was something, and they were, it's hard to say that the Dodgers were hungry, but I mean, when you sit there and lose in the first round every single year, and then we know what happened in the Houston series, of course, and Boston and all that. Dick, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I might disagree with Ballard a little bit on the fact that the only time that they had a better team. I mean, we had, I think over the years I was there 19 full seasons, and we had a better record than the Dodgers, I think 7 or 8 of those. So we had our share. We won the division in 05 and 06.
You did.
Should have won it in 07, but didn't.
Right.
And the Dodgers, they went through a period, they weren't, on the same level with us, quite frankly. So
very true.
They did have their ups and downs. I need to say one thing, and that is, it's real difficult to sit here, and I continue to want to say, Ballard really changed my life. I mean, I was a CPA and accountant. He hired me and put me into a very exciting field that I spent the next 28 years in, and everything about my life really revolves around. When I even look back now, when I see people, the first thing they generally think of is the Padres, and so it was a wonderful thing for me, and so I appreciate, and I want to make sure he knows that.
I tell people that the only person I ever associated with at the club was Dick. you hire people, you fire people.
That's right.
And there was a good reason. I needed them.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have succeeded without them. And, after I left the Padres, I ran away to a small mountain town in Idaho for about a dozen years. Didn't really follow the team that much. So I stand corrected. They had some great teams when he was there.
Yeah. There's no question that, about that. And, so Dick, I got to tell you something, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this to Ballard, when he was on last. When I think of the Pittsburgh Pirates, I grew up in L.A. and went to Dodger games during the Koufax Drysdale era and all that business. But we'd always get to the ball game, Chavez Ravine, early, and especially when the Pirates played, because I wanted to sit there and watch fielding practice. So when they hit a fly ball to Clemente and he'd take it in deep right field, it wouldn't go more than 3 feet off the ground on the fly to the third baseman. And they go, "That's what you remember about the Pirates?" "Oh, yeah, we wanted to get to the game early to watch." Are they still doing fielding practice these days?
They don't do much of it, I don't think. If they do, I've not seen it, quite frankly.
Yeah,
so
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do much of it. I think they've kind of bowed out. You mentioned Clemente, of course. His number is in the news this week because when we built PNC Park, we wanted the wall in right field to be 21 feet high because of his number.
I did not know that.
And so I don't know if you saw it or not, but a fan fell. And I don't know if he's what the status is at this point, but it was a very, very serious accident. Of course, it's been open 25 years.
Yeah.
This is the first time I think that anything like that's ever happened. But
Right.
when you mentioned Clemente and the number 21 came to my mind, I wanted to tell that story.
Right. Dick, certainly Ballard was talking about Goose Gossage and all that business. But Andy wanted me to ask you about Bruce Hurst, okay, and how you got Bruce Hurst.
Yeah, this was a couple of years after Ballard left, and we came. You get me started on some of these stories.
That's what we're here for. We have plenty of time.
Bruce Hurst, I think it's fair to say, was the top free agent that year in all Major League Baseball, and I was told that we had no chance to get him. He was going back to Boston. So my secretary comes in. She'd been to her dentist. And she says, "My dentist said to tell you that Bruce Hurst really wants to come to San Diego." I said, "Your dentist? What does your dentist know?" She says, "Well, his son-in-law is a guy named Danny Ainge. Do you know that name?"
Oh my goodness!
And he and Bruce Hurst are very good friends.
Did he go to BYU?
He did not go to BYU. He went to Dixie College.
Okay.
But Danny Ainge was playing for the Celtics and Bruce was playing for the Red Sox.
Right.
So they got to be friends in Boston. And so anyway, so I followed up on it. And Jack McKeon and I went and met with him. I took him out, introduced him to Joan Kroc. We took him out on her boat here in the San Diego Harbor, cruised around a little bit. And she loved him. I will say Ballard knows Joan much better than I do, but it's seldom that I saw her like a baseball player, like she immediately took to Bruce Hurst. He was just a genuinely wonderful guy. And he had, some really 155 games with us over the next 4 years. And I think it kind of goes under the radar. That's why Andy said to bring it up, because he was a terrific guy and he was always in a tough game. He always wanted the ball, as they say. We've had a few pitchers who didn't want the ball when the tough game came up. But Bruce was one of those guys that did. David Wells, another one. Those kind of guys you really like having around. So but anyway, that's probably what Andy wanted me to tell. And it was a very high profile signing. Let's say that the media got involved a lot. And so anyway, it was it was good for us.
We come back from break. I want to talk a little about, Ballard, you and I may have chatted about this first time. I think it's worth bringing it again about Trader Jack. And, you mentioned Jack McKeon, of course, and, Ballard, you worked with him very closely. Talk about that era as well. And then I also want to save some time in the second half of the interview to talk about, credit to the current Padres ownership and the leadership. Man, they're getting 42,000 people a game out there, and credit to them, for doing that. We can talk about that as well when we return with these San Diego Padre icons, Dick Freeman and Ballard Smith, former presidents. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight in the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, talking to former Padre presidents Dick Freeman and Ballard Smith. Right before break, Ballard, Dick was referring to Jack McKeon, of course, and so forth. And Trader Jack was quite a GM, was he not?
He was quite a GM. Especially in his own mind.
Tell me how was it tough to manage a guy like Jack? Or do you manage a guy like Jack?
Yeah, I was thinking, I'm not sure how you do manage Jack. So 6 or 7 years ago, I got this idea in my head that I wanted to write a timeline about my time with the Padres for my kids. And then I got involved with Barry Bloom, and we decided to do a book about the 84 season. And one of the research items was reading Jack's book. And if you read Jack's book, Jack was 100% the reason that we were in the World Series in 1984.
Nobody else, right?
We're not in the World Series without him.
Right.
But without the other people that did some pretty impressive things, we wouldn't have been in the World Series either. And that's one of the messages I tried to get across. Dick Freeman, Andy Strasburg, Elton Schiller, just were a bunch of people that were involved doing the little things that allowed us to put together that team that got to the World Series in 1984.
Right. So, and you can answer this too, Ballard, but I'm going to start with Dick on. I worked for the Union Tribune for many years, but I was on the, I'm a former sports writer for some smaller papers in San Diego County. When I came to the UT, I went to the dark side. I went to the community and public relations side. But I worked with all the folks that that covered you folks. Dick, how was your relationship with the UT sports writers?
I had a good relationship with everybody except one, and he was the editor.
Oh, okay. Editor of the paper or the sports editor?
Sports editor. Okay.
Was he the tennis guy that liked to play? Okay, yeah. Very good. We're not going to mention his name?
I don't mind, yeah.
Okay, please mention his name.
His name's Barry Lord.
Of course.
Barry's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he did not like me very much, and it was not a pleasant relationship.
Now, why wouldn't he like you? You're a likable guy, man. It's the first time I've met you, but I've heard everybody I talked to through Andy and go down the list over here just thinks what a wonderful guy you are, and you are. What's wrong with Lorge?
I know the answer to a large extent, but it's one of those types of things. The man's no longer with us.
I understand.
I just think it's probably better off that I don't go into it. But there were definitely some very specific things that he was not happy with me about, and it had nothing to do with the team or the way I ran the ball club. Yeah. It was on a personal basis, and
interesting.
It's just one of those things that I finally ended up writing a letter to Helen Copley and a few other people at the. I'm trying to think. Herb Klein, Jerry Warren.
Yeah, all the guys people I worked with.
And when I wrote that letter and laid it all out for them, there was no problem from then on.
Well, good for you. Good for you for doing that. Obviously, you worked with Jack Murphy, of course, and probably Wayne Lockwood and all the guys. Jerry McGee and so forth.
Wayne was a great guy. Yeah. I didn't know Jack Murphy. Wayne was great.
Yeah.
and the guys in the afternoon paper, actually, Barry Bloom, Nick Canepa, I got along with fine. Phil was a little interesting, Phil Collier, because Phil was so close to Jack. And, those guys were dependent on Jack to give him, we have a good relationship. And so it was tough for anybody that ever had challenges with Jack to keep a good relationship with those people all the time. If you know what you've been in the business, so you kind of know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I know. Yeah, I know it very well. Ballard, how about you? What was your relationship with our newspaper as a whole, and of course on the sports side?
So the book that I'm working on is with Barry Bloom, who was with the afternoon paper.
That's right.
And as you know, if you're with the afternoon paper, you can't write about the game because that was in the morning.
Exactly.
And Barry used to drive me nuts. But in his defense, I didn't like a lot of stuff he wrote. The problem is a lot of stuff he wrote was true. So, and when I happened to mention to Barry about this book and he pitched this idea of working together on it, and I've now gotten to know him over the last, 5 or 6 years. I really like him. He's an honest guy. He's a very hardworking guy. The problem is it's a public business. And people in all businesses get in disputes with their employees and have problems. And when it's a sports team, it ends up in the newspaper. And I didn't particularly like it.
Yeah, one of the things, I taught journalism for a time at San Diego State for a while, and being the spokesperson for the newspaper, I was for 11 years. Of course, I had to deal with all different types of things. I got interviewed more difficult by my colleagues in the newsroom because they didn't look at me as a colleague. They looked at me as if someone could give them some answers, whether it was a press fire or there was a labor issue or whatever. But I would always get questions, about from other folks. Hey, your reporter colleagues are not covering us fairly. Okay. And I'd say, well, then we need to have a conversation with the editor. Dick?
I just wanted to mention one other person who probably was, to me, the finest sports journalist I ever worked with, and he was the sports editor of the Tribune, Tom Cushman.
Tom's great.
And then he became this editor of when they merged the two papers together. He became the editor of the sports editor for the morning paper also. And Tom was just a true professional. Didn't always write wonderful things about us, but that was okay. He was fair about it and would call and ask questions and so forth. So if I was going to say somebody to me that set the standard, it would be Tom Cushman.
And I would agree with that.
Yeah. It really makes you feel good about this stuff because what the world these days is so different. One of the things that I take amazing offense at when people call what's reported in the news, and especially the Union Tribune, I'm not working for them anymore. I stopped in 2020. But after many, many years working for them, is that when they call it fake news, I said, listen, it's not fake news. You just disagree with it. There's a big difference between being fake news and you just disagree with something. And I always love to hear what the opinions are of people that are covered like you guys all the time or the Chargers. And I'm hearing that we were, maybe didn't like everything we wrote, but hopefully fair and hopefully balanced as well. So Dick, let me ask you this. Tell me the differences of working for the Pirates and working for the Padres.
I'll give you my standard answer. At the Padres, it was always a soap opera.
Not quite a soap opera with the McClatchys, huh?
It wasn't a soap opera in Pittsburgh. It was just business and sports. But here, Ballard will know, we always had something going on of some kind.
Look at Ballard's face over here.
It wasn't just true of when the Crocs owned the team. It was true always. When I was with the Padres, there was always something going on that probably had little or nothing to do with the baseball team. But in a way, it would always turn out to have some effect.
Were you there with the Roseanne Bar? Were you there?
Oh, okay, that's a bad subject. Yes, I was. I was the president of the team.
So for those folks who don't know what I'm talking about, Tom Werner owned the Padres at the time, big TV producer, and Roseanne Barr was one of his stars, and she did probably the worst rendition of the national anthem in the history of national anthems. What do you think?
Oh, not even close. By far the worst.
Yeah.
I saw the worst, and I saw on TV the best. Whitney Houston was the best ever, and Roseanne Barr was the worst. So I saw the full range.
Yeah. Ballard, last time we chatted about, Ted Giannoulis, of course, the chicken. He was a journalism major at San Diego State, and you were instrumental in raising the bar with him and so forth. Is Ted still around?
Ted's around. And Dick and I have had lunch with him occasionally. It's been a little while, but
right.
What an iconic talent.
But you recognize. I mean, you gave it the insights to give it a forum, so to speak. Correct. That's important.
Ballard really gave him his opportunity in every way. And one of the best was when they had Ballard. I wasn't even at the club then, but I know from history that when they arranged for him to come out of his eggshell or his egg in his new uniform.
It was wonderful.
That was a really amazing night at San Diego. And I was just a fan in those days. And I remember reading about it and so forth. But Ballard offered to pay him on the basis of how many people they drew that night.
Yeah.
And I think he ended up, Ballard offered him maybe $500, or he wanted $500, and he ended up getting $5,000 or something like that, wasn't it, Ballard?
Well, it's he wanted $10,000 for legal bills because he had problems with KGB.
He did.
And so I said to him, okay, we got a game 2 weeks on Saturday. We're going to draw $20,000. I'll give you $1 for everybody over that. He wanted $2. We agreed on $1.50. And quite frankly, we were not selling tickets. He'd put this egg out in left field. And these two guys hid in the restroom after a game and stole the egg.
That's right.
And decided to ransom it for, I don't know, all the beer they can drink and 4 tickets or whatever. And it was a slow news week, and we started selling tickets. So we ended up drawing, I think, 47,000 people. I wrote a check to him for $42,000. So instead of the $10,000, but we made out too.
I have to say that I won't try and one up Ballard, but when we closed Qualcomm the last weekend, one of the things, Ted was very reluctant to do anything because he thought it should be the players get all the recognition. I said, sometimes you had to appeal to Ted, and I said, we're going to go do the same thing Ballard did with you, only this time we're going to draw $35,000 without you. And I'll pay you everything over and above that, but I'll make the dollar number much higher. Anyway, to make a long story short, the next Monday he came in my office and I handed him a check for I think $52,000 or $53,000 because we ended up selling the place out, and he did a wonderful job. He never was better than he was that last weekend.
I think that's great. But I do want to end up the questions we talked about before at the break on this, and we'll start with you on this, Dick, and then go over to Ballard. Really credit to what's going on with the organization. They're trying just an amazing amount of folks. What do you attribute that to, Dick?
Well, there's a lot of things. First of all, they got a good team.
They do.
They got a great ballpark,
right?
And they've just done. They make it a very fan-friendly place. The thing I went down there about the second game of the season. I wanted to walk my wife around the whole ballpark just so she could see it. The number of young people with Padres gear on, and the enthusiasm and the excitement, it was just really amazing. And it was nice to see, and they deserve all sorts of credit. I do think Ballard and I did a good job of laying the groundwork in a lot of ways, but they've really, really picked it up, and they're doing a great job with it.
Yeah, well, there's no question you guys laid the groundwork. What are your thoughts on that, Ballard?
Well, so the best team is still going to lose 25 to 30 games at home.
That's right.
So when I was growing up, Bill Vecco owned the White Sox. They grew up in Chicago. Great promotion guy.
100%.
Ray Kroc, pretty good promotion guy with McDonald's. Andy Strasburg, good promotion guy with the Padres.
That's right.
And I think the combination of that, we realized that there has to be more than the game. And, we started doing things like having a concert after the game and some of these
Beach Boys
giveaways that we did. And I think they've continued that.
Right.
Now, obviously, the Seidler family been amazing in the amount of money they put into the team.
Right.
I think Eric Grupner's doing a great job as president. And they've just created this tremendous atmosphere. And I remember going to one of the playoff games last year, and I walked out behind the scoreboard where there's a big video board, as you know.
Right.
Now, the Padres last year, they had 56 sellouts in 81 games. But their announced attendance was 103% of capacity. And that's because all those people gather out there.
That's right.
And they're literally hundreds, maybe 1,000 people that never see anything live. They're sitting out there watching the video board. And I think that's just unbelievable.
If I'm not mistaken, on Game 4 against the Dodgers, they had 47,000 people in a Petco holds 42.3 or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so they had 5,000 obviously SRO and all this aspect. Promise me, and I know you guys are very busy and doing some things, but I would love to continue these conversations with you folks a few more times before the season is over, if you're willing to come back on.
I'd love to do it. I do want to insert one thing. I hope we get a second here. But we got to talking about the 84 team.
Do.
I don't want to leave here without saying Jack McKeon did a lot of things. I went through each player and wrote down where they came from and how they got here. And it's interesting. Everything from Alan Wiggins, the Rule 5 draft, ends up scoring 105 or 110 runs, stealing 70 bases.
That's right.
As a Rule 5 draft guy. And so Jack did some really good things along the way. But if you talk about who hired Dick Williams as the manager, who signed Goose Gossage, who signed Steve Garvey, that was all Ballard. I was there. I know how it went down. And there probably are other things that I could attribute to him, but it all fit together and it all came together in 84. I give a lot of credit to the people Ballard mentioned, Elton Schiller, Andy Strasburg, you name them, because 82 and 83 seasons, we did some pretty good attendance, and that really financially helped us do what we did in 84. So concerts, giveaways, you name it, we did it. And that was extremely important as we went through that whole process of building the financial stability and capability to put the 84 team on the field.
Yeah, well, you guys greased the skids as well. So I'm going to sit there and take the liberty of inviting you both back on, periodically through the season, if it's okay with you. A lot more, to cover on this. I want to hear about that list you have here. Save that list. Don't get rid of that list, Dick. We're going to talk about that as well. And, I think, the Padres are just, doing some, just great things this year, but people love and need to know what set this up. And it's important to talk about that. And as long as you're willing, I'm going to have you folks come back on my Spotlight show.
Sure, we appreciate
Love to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one question my business partner wants to ask, if you had not really risen up and gave Ted Gianlos that opportunity, what would he be doing besides probably being still at the Daily Aztec with me writing sports or something like that? We don't know what we'd be doing, right?
No, but I think Ted's talent speaks for himself.
Right.
And yes, the Padres gave him an opportunity, but he took advantage of it.
He did.
And he ended up having his own TV show, doing Super Bowls and all kinds of events. So I feel good we gave him the opportunity, but he should feel good that he took advantage of it.
That's good. Well, listen, Ballard Smith and Dick Freeman, former presidents of the San Diego Padres, thank you for sharing all this information. You will be coming back on if you so desire. There's a lot more to cover. I think this is great. I think, that my Dodger friends are going to hate me saying this, but I think this is the Padres year. You never know. They play 162 games, for God's sake. Who knows what's going to happen, and it's how you play in those playoffs as well. But off to a great start. And we'll see what happens. But I think this is going to be a fun year. And then when they win their first World Series in 2025, I'm going to take the credit for having you guys on my show.
Very good.
Very good. Ballard Smith and Dick Freeman, thanks for joining us. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You've been listening to an edition of Drew Schlossberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.